A few weeks ago, a post appeared on social media that spread across football fan accounts faster than almost anything else in the build-up to this tournament. It claimed that Richarlison, the Spurs forward, one of Brazil's most recognizable players, had made a statement. The post alleged he had said, "I won't play the World Cup until the fight is over." Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times. Screenshots circulated on X, on Instagram, on WhatsApp groups across Brazil and Europe and everywhere else football people follow the Seleção. The idea that a key member of the Brazilian squad had taken a public stand, that a major player was questioning his own participation, generated exactly the kind of discussion that spreads quickly and sticks. There was one problem. Richarlison never said it. The post originated from a parody account, a novelty X account that publishes fabricated quotes attributed to footballers. Richarlison saw it going viral and came out publicly to kill it. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the fake news had gone too far and that he had never made that statement. End of story? On one level, yes. The boycott claim was fiction. Richarlison is in the squad. Brazil are going to the World Cup. The Seleção's participation is not in doubt and has never been in doubt for a single day. But here's what makes the story worth telling. Not because the fake quote was real, but because of how fast it traveled, because of how many people in how many countries believed it immediately and passed it on. That says something, not about Richarlison, about the climate surrounding this tournament and the anxiety that has built around it in the months since the draw. The boycott conversation has been real in 2026, genuinely real, in Germany, in the Netherlands, among some voices in England and France and across Scandinavia. Brazil was never part of that conversation in any meaningful institutional sense. The CBF, the Brazilian Football Confederation, has never discussed a boycott. Brazil's players have never called for one. The squad was confirmed on May 18th, named at the Museum of Tomorrow in Rio de Janeiro by Carlo Ancelotti, and it contains some of the most gifted footballers on the planet. The idea of Brazil not going to the World Cup is, frankly, incompatible with everything the Brazilian football culture is built on. But the fact that a fabricated quote from one player could spread so far, so fast, and that so many people found it plausible, tells you something about where the football world's head is right now, 16 days before June 11th. So let's do something more useful than dwelling on a fake story. Let's talk about the real Brazil, because the real Brazil in 2026 is a story worth your full attention. Start with the manager, Carlo Ancelotti, 66 years old, Italian, the most decorated manager in Champions League history, 5 titles across different clubs. He's managed at Milan, Juventus, Chelsea, Everton, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. He has won the English League, the Spanish League, the Italian League, the German League, and the French League. He has managed Maldini, Pirlo, Lampard, Gerrard, Ronaldo, Benzema, Modric. And now, for the first time in his career, he is managing a national team. That detail is worth sitting with. Ancelotti has never managed international football before this appointment. He took the Brazil job knowing that the expectations on this squad are unlike anything else in world football. Brazil have not been to a World Cup final since they last won the tournament in 2002, 24 years. For a country where football is not merely a sport, but something closer to a civic religion, 24 years without a final is a wound that stays open. Ancelotti was brought in precisely because of what he represents, a man who consistently gets the best out of the best players in the world, and the squad he's confirmed for 2026 gives you a clear picture of his thinking. The spine of it is built on players he knows deeply: Vinicius Jr. at Real Madrid, Alisson Becker in goal, Marquinhos, who has been one of the finest central defenders in Europe for the better part of a decade, Casemiro in midfield. These are players of the very highest level, at or near their peak, who understand what winning in the biggest moments requires. Vinicius Jr. is the centerpiece of everything. He enters this tournament in what most serious analysts consider the best form of his career. His directness, his pace, his finishing, his willingness to take on defenders in tight spaces. He's the player that opponents will build their defensive plans around. Ancelotti doesn't need to tell him what to do. He just needs to give him the freedom to do what he already does better than almost anyone else. Rafinha provides the balance on the other flank. The Barcelona winger has had seasons at his club that deserve more recognition than they typically receive internationally. His work rate, his technical precision, his ability to drift inside and create chances with his right foot. Alongside Vinicius, Brazil's wide attack is genuinely frightening for any defensive structure.
In behind them, Bruno Guimaraes at Newcastle has become one of the most complete central midfielders in European football. His ability to control tempo, win the ball, and then distribute quickly is the kind of quality that turns possession into pressure. Lucas Paquetá, Fabinho, Casemiro. Ancelotti has options and depth in the engine room. And then there's the position that has generated the most conversation in the Brazilian camp, the center-forward role. Ancelotti has said plainly, Brazil entered this tournament without a definitively settled first-choice number 9. Matheus Cunha, Endrick, Igor Thiago, and a fit Neymar are all candidates for that central position. The question of who starts against Scotland in the opening group match is one of the most genuinely interesting selection debates of the tournament. The Neymar situation is the thread that runs through all of it. He is 34 years old. He is Brazil's all-time leading scorer. He returned to Santos after years abroad and has been working to rebuild his physical condition after a series of serious injuries. Ancelotti's stated principle throughout his time in charge has been unambiguous. Only players at 100% physical fitness make the squad. And yet, Neymar is in the squad. That tells you something about the judgment Ancelotti has made, that at full fitness, even at 34, Neymar still offers something that nobody else on this planet can provide. The creativity in tight spaces, the ability to find a pass that exists only in his imagination, the dead ball quality, the clutch performance gene that has never fully deserted him. If Neymar arrives at this World Cup fit, genuinely, sustainably fit, Brazil become even more difficult to play against than they already are. If the injury history catches up with him again, Ancelotti has the squad depth to manage without him. But the possibility of Neymar at a World Cup, at 34, potentially for the last time, adds a dimension to Brazil's story that captures something primal about football fandom. You want to see the great ones have one more moment on the biggest stage, even when logic tells you it might not happen. Brazil are in Group C, Morocco, Scotland, and Haiti. On paper, it's the most manageable of the 4 possible group assignments Brazil could have drawn. But Carlo Ancelotti said something about Morocco that journalists noted carefully when he made his first comments about the group. He said the draw had given them a difficult group. He mentioned Morocco specifically and called them a very good team. This is a man who doesn't exaggerate or reach for compliments as a diplomatic habit. He said difficult, and he said very good about a Morocco side that reached the semi-finals in Qatar and whose defensive identity has survived a coaching transition that many predicted would soften their organization. Brazil's World Cup history is the deepest and most storied of any nation in football. 5 titles, more than any other country, and yet the last of those titles is 24 years old, which in the context of Brazilian football's ambitions feels like an agonizing gap. They've reached the quarterfinals twice in that time. They were knocked out by Croatia in the last 16 in Qatar. Each successive failure adds weight to the next attempt. What's different in 2026 isn't just the squad. It's the presence of a manager who has navigated high expectations at the highest level of club football without flinching. Ancelotti's calmness is his most important quality. He doesn't generate unnecessary pressure. He doesn't publicly single players out. He creates an environment where elite footballers perform at their level because they feel trusted and well prepared. The psychological dimension of managing the Brazil squad, with its extraordinary talent, its enormous public profile, and its weight of expectation, is something that has undone previous coaches who were technically as qualified, but temperamentally less suited. Could Brazil boycott the 2026 World Cup? No. The answer is no. And it was always no. The question, in the form it was ever really asked, was never serious. The Richarlison story was fiction, and it was debunked by the man himself within hours. The CBF has made no such consideration. Brazil are going. Their squad is named. Carlo Ancelotti is preparing his team for a tournament he believes he can win. But ask a different question. Could Brazil win the 2026 World Cup? And suddenly you're in territory where the answer is neither simple nor obvious. They have the talent, they have the manager, they have the history and culture that turns a good team into a great one when the stakes are at their highest. They also have a competition that includes France, the world's #1 ranked nation, Argentina, the defending champions, who have not looked like relinquishing the trophy willingly, Spain, the European champions, England, who have not won the World Cup since 1966 and arrive with genuine depth and genuine belief. One of those nations will lift the trophy at MetLife Stadium on July 19th. Brazil wanted to be them. Ancelotti believes it can be. Vinicius Jr., standing somewhere in New York or Los Angeles, or wherever Brazil's camp is based, 16 days from now, is thinking about that final whistle and that trophy and what it would mean. The boycott was never the story. The comeback is. What do you think? Is this the Brazil that finally ends the 24-year wait? Or is there a team in this tournament that you think has their measure? Leave your view in the comments. Genuinely, I'd like to know which side you'd back to stop Vinicius and Ancelotti. If this kind of football conversation is worth your time, a like helps more than you think. Subscribe if you want to follow Brazil and every other story in this tournament all the way through to July 19th. 16 days. Neymar is in the squad. Ancelotti is in charge, and Brazil want a 6th star. Football at this scale is never just a tournament, it's a moment in time, and 2026 is going to be one of them.